the Abyss by H.G. Wells. The lieutenant stood in front of the steel sphere and gnawed a piece of pine splinter. "What do you think of it, Stevens?" he asked. "It's an idea," said Stevens, in the tone of one who keeps an open mind. "I believe it'll smash. Flat," said the lieutenant. "He seems to have calculated it all pretty well," said Stevens, still impartial. "But think of the pressure," said the lieutenant. "At the surface of the water, it's 14 pounds to the inch. 30 feet down, it's double that. 60, treble. 90, 4 times. 900, 40 times 5,300, and that's a mile. It's 240 times 14 pounds. That's, let's see, 30 hundredweight, a ton and a half, Stevens, a ton and a half to the square inch. And the ocean where he's going is 5 miles deep. That's 7.5. "Sounds a lot," said Stevens, "but it's jolly thick steel." The lieutenant made no answer, but resumed his pine splinter. The object of their conversation was a huge globe of steel, having an exterior diameter of perhaps 8 feet. It looked like the shot from some titanic piece of artillery. It was elaborately nested in a monstrous scaffolding, built into the framework of the vessel, and the gigantic spars that were presently to sling it overboard gave the stern of the ship an appearance that had raised the curiosity of every decent sailor who had sighted it, from the Pool of London to the Tropic of Capricorn. In 2 places, one above the other, the steel gave place to a couple of circular windows, enormously thick glass, and one of these, set in a steel frame of great solidity, was now partially unscrewed. Both the men had seen the interior of this globe for the first time that morning. It was elaborately padded with air cushions, with little studs sunk between bulging pillows to work the simple mechanism of the affair. Everything was elaborately padded. Even the Myers apparatus, which was to absorb carbonic acid and replace the oxygen inspired by its tenant, where he had crept in with a gas manhole and had been screwed in. It was so elaborately padded that a man might have been fired from a gun into it with perfect safety, and it need be, for presently a man was to crawl in through that glass manhole, to be screwed up tightly, and to be flung overboard, and to sink down, 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 for 5 miles. Even as Lieutenant said it had taken the strongest hold of his imagination. It made him a bore at mess, and he found Stevens, the new arrival aboard, a godsend to talk about it, over and over again. "It's my opinion," said the lieutenant, "that the glass will simply bend in and bulge and smash under a pressure of that sort. Dalbray has made rocks run like water under big pressure, and, you mark my words, if the glass did break in," said Stevens, "what then? The water would shoot in like a jet of iron. Have you ever felt a straight jet of high-pressure water? It would hit as hard as a bullet. It would simply smash him and flatten him. It would tear him down its throat and into his lungs. It would blow in his ears." "What a detailed imagination you have," protested Stevens, who saw things vividly. "It's a simple statement of the inevitable," said the lieutenant. "And the globe would just give out a few little bubbles, and it would settle down comfortably against the day of judgment, among the oozes of the bottom clay, and poor Elstead spread over his own smashed cushions like butter over bread." He repeated this sentence as though he liked it very much. "Like butter over bread," he said. "Have a look at the jigger," said the voice behind him, and Elstead stood behind him, spick and span in white, with a cigarette between his teeth, and his eyes smiling out of the shadow of his ample hat brim. "What's that about bread and butter, Weybridge? Grumbling as usual about the insufficient pay of naval officers? It won't be more than a day now before I start. We are to get the slings ready today. This clean sky and gentle swell is just the kind of thing for swinging off 20 tons of lead and iron, isn't it?" "It won't affect you much," said Weybridge. "No. 70 or 80 feet down, and I shall be there in a dozen seconds. There's not a particle moving, though the wind shriek itself hoarse up above, and the water lifts halfway to the clouds. No. Down there," he moved to the side of the ship where the other 2 followed him. All 3 leaned forward on their elbows and stared down into the yellow-green water. "Peace," said Elstead, finishing his thought aloud. "Are you dead certain that clockwork will act?" asked Weybridge, presently. "It has worked 35 times," said Elstead. "It's bound to work. But if it doesn't, why shouldn't it? I wouldn't go down there in that confounded thing," said Weybridge, "for 20,000 pounds. "Cheerful chap you are," said Elstead, and spat sociably at a bubble below. "I don't understand yet how you mean to work the thing," said Stevens. "In the first place, I'm screwed into the sphere," said Elstead, "and when I've turned the electric light off and on 3 times to show I'm cheerful, I'm swung out over the stern by that crane, with all those big lead sinkers slung below me. The top lead weight has a roller carrying 100 fathoms of strong cord rolled up, and that's all that joins the sinkers to the sphere, except the slings that will be cut when the affair is dropped. We use cord rather than wire rope because it's easier to cut and more buoyant. Necessary points, as you will see." Through each of these lead weights, you'll notice there is a hole, and an iron rod will be run through that and projects 6 feet on the lower side. If that rod is rammed up from below, it knocks up a lever and sets the clockwork in motion at the side of the cylinder in which the cord winds. Very well, the whole affair is lowered gently into the water, and the slings are cut. The sphere floats with the air in it. It's lighter than water, but lead weights go down straight and the cord runs out. When the cord is all paid out, the sphere will go down too, pulled by the cord. But why the cord? Asked Stevens. Why not fasten the weights directly to the sphere? Because of the smash down below, the whole affair will go rushing down, mile after mile, at a headlong pace at last. It would be knocked to pieces on the bottom if it wasn't for that cord, but the weights will hit the bottom, and directly they will do the buoyancy of the sphere will come into play. It will go on sinking, slower and slower, come to a stop at last, and then begin to float upward again. That's where the clockwork comes in. Directly the weights smash against the sea bottom. The rod will be knocked through and will kick up the clockwork, and the cord will be rewound on the reel. I shall be lugged down to the sea bottom. There I shall stay for half an hour, with the electric light on, looking about me. Then the clockwork will release a spring knife, and the cord will be cut, and up I shall rush again, like a soda water bubble. The cord itself will help the flotation. And if you should chance to hit a ship, said Weybridge. I should come up at such a pace, I should go clean through it, said Elstead, like a cannonball. You needn't worry about that. And suppose some nimble crustacean should wiggle into your clockwork. It would be a pressing sort of invitation for me to stop, said Elstead, turning his back on the water and staring at the sphere. They had swung Elstead overboard by 11 o'clock. The day was serenely bright and calm, with the horizon lost in haze. The electric glare in the little upper compartment beamed cheerfully 3 times. Then they let him down slowly to the surface of the water, and a sailor in the stern chains hung ready to cut the tackle that held the lead weights and the sphere together. The globe, which had looked so large on deck, looked the smallest thing conceivable under the stern of the ship. It rolled a little, and its 2 dark windows, which floated uppermost, seemed like eyes turned up in a round wonderment at the people who crowded the rail. A voice wondered how Elstead liked the rolling. Are you ready? Sang out the commander. Aye, aye, sir. Then let her go. The rope of the tackle tightened against the blade and was cut, and an eddy rolled over the globe in a grotesquely helpless fashion. Someone waved a handkerchief. Someone else tried an ineffectual cheer. A middy was counting slowly. 8, 9, 10. Another roll, then with a jerk and a splash, the thing righted itself. It seemed to be stationary for a moment, to grow rapidly smaller, and then the water closed over it, and it became visible, enlarged by refraction and dimmer below the surface. Before one could count 3, it had disappeared. There was a flicker of white light far down in the water, but that diminished to a speck and vanished. Then there was nothing but a depth of water going down into the blackness through which the shark was swimming. Then suddenly the screw of the cruiser began to rotate. The water was crickled, the shark disappeared in a wrinkled confusion, and a torrent of foam rushed across the crystalline clearness that had swallowed up Elstead. What's the idea? Said one AB to another. We're going to lay off about a couple of miles. Fear he should hit us when he comes up, said his mate. The ship steamed slowly to her position. Aboard her almost everyone was unoccupied, remained watching the breathing swell into which the sphere had sunk. For the next half hour it is doubtful if a word was spoken that did not bear directly or indirectly on Elstead. The December sun was now high in the sky, and the heat was very considerable. He'll be cold enough down there, said Weybridge. They say that below a certain depth, sea water is always just about freezing. Where'll he come up? Asked Stevens. I've lost my bearings. That's the spot, said the commander, who prided himself in his omniscience. He extended a precise finger southeastward, and this, I reckon, is pretty near the moment, he said. He's been 35 minutes. How long does it take to reach the bottom of the ocean? Asked Stevens. For a depth of 5 miles, and reckoning, as we did, an acceleration to 2 foot per second both ways, is just about 3/4 of a minute. Then he's overdue, said Weybridge. Pretty nearly, said the commander. I suppose it takes a few minutes for that cord of his to wind in. I forgot that, said Weybridge, evidently relieved. And then began the suspense. A minute slowly dragged itself out, and no sphere shot out of the water. Another followed, and nothing broke the low, oily swell. The sailors explained to one another that little point about the winding in of the cord. The rigging was dotted with expected bases. Come on, Elstead, called one hairy-chested salt impatiently, and the others caught it up and shouted as though they were waiting for the curtain of theater to rise. The commander glanced irritably at them. Of course, if the acceleration's less than 2, he said, he'll be all the longer. We aren't absolutely certain this was proper figure. I'm no slavish believer in calculations. Stevens agreed concisely. No one on the quarterdeck spoke for a couple of minutes. Then Stevens' watch case clicked. When 21 minutes after the sun reached the zenith, they were still waiting for the globe to reappear. and not a man aboard had dared to whisper that hope is dead. It was Weybridge who first gave expression to that realization. He spoke while the sound of 8 bells still hung in the air. "I always distrusted that window," he said quite suddenly to Stevens. "Good God," said Stevens, "you don't think—" "Well," said Weybridge, and left the rest to his imagination. "I'm no great believer in calculations myself," said the commander dubiously, "so that I'm not altogether hopeless yet." And at midnight, the gunboat was steaming slowly in a spiral around the spot where the globe had sunk, and the white beam of the electric light fled and halted and swept discontentedly onward, again over the waste of phosphorescent waters under the little stars. "If his window hasn't burst and smashed him," said Weybridge, "then it's a cursed sight worse, for his clockwork has gone wrong, and he's alive now, 5 miles under our feet, down there in the cold and dark, anchored in that little bubble of his, where never a ray of light has shone or a human being lived, since the waters were gathered together. He's there without food, feeling hungry and thirsty and scared, wondering whether he'll starve or stifle. Which will it be? The Myers apparatus is running out, I suppose. How long do they last? Good heavens," he explained, "what little things we are. What daring little devils down there, miles and miles of water, and all this empty water about us, and the sky. Gulfs." He threw his hands out. As he did, a little white streak swept noiselessly up the sky. Traveling more slowly, stopped, became motionless dot, as though a new star had fallen up into the sky. Then it went sliding back again and lost itself amidst the reflections of the stars and the white haze of the sea's phosphorescence. At the sight he stopped, arm extended and mouth open. He shut his mouth, opened it again, and waved his arms with an impatient gesture. Then he turned, shouted, "Elstead ahoy!" to the first watch, and went at a run to Linley and the searchlight. "I saw him," he said. "Starboard, there. His light's on. He's just shot out there in the water. Bring the light round. We ought to see him drifting when he lifts on the swell." But they never picked up the Explorer until dawn. Then they almost ran him down. The crane was swung out of a boat's crew, hooked the chain to the sphere. When they had shipped the sphere, they unscrewed the manhole and peered into the darkness of the interior, for the electric light chamber was intended to illuminate the water about the sphere and was shut off entirely from its general cavity. The air was very hot within the cavity, and the Indian rubber at the lip of the manhole was soft. There was no answer to their eager question and no sound of movement from within. Elstead seemed to be lying motionless, crumpled up in the bottom of the globe. The ship's doctor crawled in and lifted him out to the men outside. For a moment or so they did not know whether Elstead was alive or dead. His face, in the yellow glow of the ship's lamps, glistened with perspiration. They carried him down to his own cabin. He was not dead, they found, but in a state of absolute nervous collapse, and besides cruelly bruised. For some days he had to lie perfectly still. It was a week before he could tell his experiences. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. H.G. Wells. It's in 2 parts, but I decided like the first part would have only been after like 7 minutes where that ended, just basically after they introduced the orb and what was going to go on. So I stopped it more closer to halfway through. All right, thanks so much for watching, guys. Part 2 will be out probably, I don't know, a week. Bye.